Let's take a look at question number 1. Now we have investigate the result of a larger integer minus a smaller integer. So, how to approach these questions? Let's try and describe the outcome of this. Okay, let's do this by using some examples. Okay, so an example of a larger integer minus a smaller integer can be like this. So 4 minus 3. Okay, so 4 being the larger integer and 3 being my smaller integer, let's minus the two together. So what does this result give me? It just gives me 1, or in other words, a positive number. Let's take a look at another example. Okay, let's try 9 as my larger integer, and that is obviously bigger than negative 1. Okay, so if we minus these two numbers together, what happens? Okay, we can see that a negative next to a negative will just change to a positive. Okay, so this result will give me 10. So another positive number. Okay, let's try think of one more example. We have negative 2 and negative 6. Okay, so yeah, just to clarify, yeah, negative 2 is indeed greater than negative 6. So if we minus these two together, what will happen? So similarly to before, if when we have two negatives together, it becomes a minus 2 plus 6. Okay, so when we add these two together, we get a 4. So looking at all these outcomes, a larger integer minus a smaller integer is always going to be positive. Okay, it's always going to give me a positive number. Okay, so these are some good things that we can keep in mind. Let's move on to question number 2. Alright, investigate the result of a positive integer minus a positive integer. So two positive integers minusing together, what result would that give me? Again, let's think of examples. 4 and 3. Okay, so 4 take 3 is just 1. Let's try another example. 6 minus 8 is negative 2. And one more. 3 minus 3. Okay, since 3 is a positive integer and 3 is also a positive integer, then 3 minus 3 is 0. Oh, so when we take a positive integer from a positive integer, our result can be, okay, a positive number, a negative number, and 0. Okay, so that's how we approach when a positive integer is minusing from another positive integer. Okay, it can be positive, negative, or it can be 0. Okay, let's move on to question number 3. Investigate the result of a smaller integer minus a larger integer. Okay, again, let's think of examples. Let's try 4 and 7. Okay, so 4 is the smaller number, obviously, and 7 is the larger number. So when we take away these numbers, we get negative 3. Let's try another example. We have negative 2 and 1. Yep, so negative 2 is the smaller number, and 1 is larger than that. So when we take away these two numbers, what do we get? We get a negative 3. Okay, so another negative number. Okay, let's try one more. Negative 5 minus negative 3. Okay, so yeah, negative 5 is my smaller one, and negative 3 is my larger one. Okay, what result would this give me? Again, we have another negative and a negative together. Okay, that changes it to a positive sign or a plus. So these two together will give me a negative 2. So just looking at all these results, we have negative all around. So a smaller integer minus a larger integer will be always negative. Okay, and that's pretty logical, that's pretty intuitive. A smaller number minus a bigger number will give me a negative number. Okay, that is pretty intuitive. Okay, let's move on. Okay, looking at this one, investigate the result of a positive integer minus a negative integer. Okay, now there's this little trick that we see from this situation. If we have a look at this example, 4 minus negative 2. So again, what we are doing is positive integer 4 minus a negative integer minus 2. Okay, now we can see again, we have the situation where we have two negatives together, meaning it will just change to a 4 plus 2. So if we add this together, we get a positive 6. Now let's try one more example. 7 minus negative 6. Okay, so a positive integer minus a negative integer. Okay, what interaction does this give me? Two negatives together, change to a plus. 7 plus 6 is 13. Okay, now one more. 8 minus negative 5. Now negative 8 plus 5, which will give me 13. Okay, so we can see here a positive integer minus a negative integer. Okay, that minus negative integer part means that all these signs just become plus, meaning we only get positive numbers here. Okay, so again, positive minus negative will give me always positive number. Okay, so that's what we can take away from this one. Okay, question number 5. Investigate the result of a negative integer minus a negative integer. So when we have two negative integers and we minus them together, what kind of result will that give me? So again, let's try examples. So negative 6 minus negative 7, so two negative numbers, will give me, again, this becomes plus, and it will give me just 1. Okay, another example, negative 9 and minus negative 3. This will becomes a plus again. Oh, and we have a negative number this time, negative 6. Let's try a final example. We have negative 5 minus negative 5, okay, which will become negative 5 plus 5. Okay, so when we minus two numbers out of the same thing, it will just give me 0. So a negative integer minus a negative integer gives me a positive number, a negative number, and it can give me 0 as well. Okay, so that's how we describe this situation. Okay, this is very similar to what we had before when we had a positive integer minus a positive integer. We also got positive, negative, 0 as the outcome. So same thing here. A negative minus a negative, again, will give me a positive, negative, or 0 as the outcome. Okay?